Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler. I'm your host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement. My voice today sounds uncharacteristically deep, and that's because I'm dealing with a bit of a head cold right now. I got the crud. I was supposed to spend about 5 or 6 hours recording my book over the next couple of days, but that's not going to happen. And because of my voice. So, anyways, I'll be back on the path and back on track here shortly. But I did want to put out this Friday field notes. It's important I get you this information. And, regardless of how we feel at times, it is important that we show up and honor our commitments and do what we can to make sure that we follow through on the things that we say we're going to do. And one of the things that I've said that I'm going to do, and it continues to hold true, is that I will put out a podcast every single week. In fact, I'll put out 3 per week, barring some sort of catastrophic event. And a bit of a man cold ain't a catastrophic event. So today, guys, I want to talk with you about getting back on the path, because we all slip from time to time. We all fall. We all get banged up. We've got external and extenuating circumstances that arise, that some within our control and some with are outside of our control. And it's really what we do in those moments that define us as men. A lot of the times it's easy to look at another person and believe that individual has it all figured out and how wonderful and great and they've got the Midas touch, but you're not really tested until things go wrong. You're not really tested until things become challenging. And I wanted to talk with you about this today because I alluded to it on Wednesday's Ask Me Anything, that over the past 60 to 90 days or so, I feel like I've gotten off the path, that I've slipped quite a bit. So I've got some points I want to share with you today. Before I get into that, just want to mention to you that we're really building out our email list, because I want to give you guys exclusive offers, insights that aren't offered on any of our social media platforms or anything like that. And it's a great way to connect with you outside of being controlled and manipulated through the social media algorithms. So if you want to support what we're doing, you want to get discounts, you want to get exclusive insights, you want to be the first to know about events that we don't even really publicize at this point because we just sell out of them so quickly, then our exclusive and private email list is where it's at. You can go to orderofman.com and sign up there, orderofman.com, and sign up for that email list. All right, guys, let's get into it. Like I said, I feel like I've gotten off track the past several months. And part of that is because I felt so overwhelmed with the success that we're having with Order of Man. And I know that sounds silly and even pretentious to say that I'm overwhelmed with how good things are going. I'm not sure I ever thought that up until recently, would believe that's the case. And so what ends up happening is I have opportunities and demands for my time and energy and attention from all sorts of different sources and outlets and places. And I'm trying to decipher what's going to be best for what we're doing and best for my family and best for me versus what I can let go. And I've always wanted to be a high value man. That's something that we talk a lot about here on this podcast, of course, and I know you do as well. And so I became very overwhelmed with all of these opportunities and things knocking on our door. And I wanted to do everything. And because I wanted to do everything, I realized very quickly that I would say yes. And then I was letting things fall through the cracks because I just didn't have the time or energy or capacity to do all of the things that I wanted to do and serve all of the people I wanted to serve in a meaningful and significant way, at least in my perspective. And so I felt guilty that I was letting things fall through the cracks. And I felt guilty that I wasn't serving the people that I wanted to serve and those even closest to me. And so rather than figuring it out, here's where I slipped. And I think a lot of us do this as men, is we withdraw. Instead of doubling down, instead of coming up with systems and processes and figuring out a path forward, a lot of the times we withdraw as men. Now, I don't like talking with you guys about this stuff. I know as I do, there's going to be comments from people, idiots who, are make light of the situation and, whatever they're going to say. But I think that's also part of the problem, that we're not really willing to talk about the issues and the challenges that we deal with. And I want you to know that you may look at me, which is still a foreign concept to me, that you may look at me as somebody who has all of his stuff figured out. And I've got a lot figured out. But even I get overwhelmed and inundated and consumed and frustrated, and I slip and I get off the path. And so I stop working out, and my horrible nutrition choices get the better of me. Or I deviate from doing my daily planning, which means I'm not as effective, which means that in my home life, I lose my patience and lose my temper because I'm guilty about not getting as much done at work. So it's this perpetual cycle of destruction unless we as men can figure out a way to overcome the things that are frustrating us in our lives and come up with a solution moving forward. So I can't tell you I have the perfect solution. This is something that I deal with from time to time. I know that about myself. My wife actually calls it entrepreneurial PMS, which is pretty fitting, actually. I'm not sure if I know what cycle it's on necessarily, but there are bouts of frustration, growing pains, which is what we're dealing with now, and just falling off the cliff, so to speak. So I've got 5 points that I've been working on over the past several weeks and over the past several months that have really got me back on track. And I'm feeling pretty good, minus my man cold I'm dealing with, about getting myself back on the path. And here's what I would say. Number one is you guys have to come to the realization that something's actually wrong. Because a lot of times we won't come to that conclusion because we don't have time set aside every single day and other people in our corner to help us evaluate our performance from an objective standpoint. It's hard to know that you're slipping because it happens so gradually and slowly, and it could take months or even years. And a year or two down the road, you look back and think, man, I'm not happy. Why am I not happy? Why am I not productive? Why am I not doing the things that I know I should be doing? Why am I not fulfilled? Why am I losing my patience? Why do I have anger issues? All of these things that we deal with as men on a daily basis. Well, I would submit to you that it didn't just happen last night, that it's happened over weeks and months and years of slipping and falling and then never really being intentional about how that's happening. So what I would encourage you to do, as I have done over the past several months, and I've certainly done in the past, is to have dedicated reflection time to consider your performance and consider how you feel. I know emotions are bad. We shouldn't, I get all that stoicism and all that. That's a misunderstanding of the concept of stoicism, by the way. And I cringe a bit when I hear people even allude to the fact that men shouldn't be emotional. Well, we're human beings and we are emotional creatures. Now, we shouldn't react emotionally. If I'm pissed off at something, I don't need to hit somebody or yell at somebody or break something. Okay, that's an emotional reaction. Instead, we should be responding. So you're considering how you feel. Hey, I'm angry. I'm impatient. I feel stressed. And we take these things that we feel and then we use them as a litmus test, so to speak, to really try to understand if we are indeed on the path that we want to be on. Now, look, things happen from day to day, and I'm going to be glad one day and sad another and happy this day and angry the next based on what's happening around me. But if you notice trends of a general sense of unhappiness, impatience, anger issues, and those become trends, it's time to start evaluating what in the world is going on. And we'll move into what you do when you start to experience that. But if you don't have dedicated time, and I would suggest to you that maybe it's 15, 20 minutes in the morning, and maybe it's 15 to 20 minutes in the evening, then these should be times where there's no distractions. You're not on your phone. You're not on your computer. The kids aren't bouncing on your leg. Your wife isn't asking you about your day or anything like that. Not that any of that is necessarily wrong, but it needs to be dedicated time where you can go into your office, or you can go to your garage, or you can go to your happy place, if you will. And if you don't have a place where you can go and you feel good and it's conducive to the type of thinking and visualization that you want in your life, then that might be something to consider as well. I know a lot of the times when you have your wife and you have children that in many ways you start to lose and control of the house, and areas start to become less and less yours. You need to establish those boundaries. This office, for example, is mine. The barn is mine. People don't come in here and dump all their stuff. They don't come in here and make a mess. My sons or daughter might come in here to clean occasionally because they want to earn an extra few dollars or something like that. But outside of that, this is my space. Same thing with the barn. And when my kids and my wife start putting stuff in the barn, I have to remind them, hey, your mess, your trash, your stuff does not migrate over here. You have the rest of the house, and you can do that in your room. You can do that wherever it is you do, but it ain't happening here. And so I have time and I have a place where I can go and not escape. I'm not talking about escapism, but go as a reprieve where I can start thinking about how I'm showing up, how I'm performing, what I want my life to look like, what a successful day is going to be, planning out my day, those sorts of things. Number two, we have to get better at saying no, gentlemen. It is more difficult than it should be for a lot of guys. And it has been for me in the past, and it has been recently. I've gotten away from saying no because I want to serve people. I want to help other people. I want people to win. I want to be a value add to my community, to my neighborhood, to my family and friends, to you guys. And so I've gotten in the habit of saying, yes, sure, yes, sure, yes, sure. And I've had people reach out and want to have meetings and appointments and things like this that I'm just not interested in having. And that's okay. That's another realization you need to come to, is that you don't have to do something if you don't want to do it. Excuse me. You don't have to do something if you don't want to do it. A lot of times we believe we do, because again, we want to be high value men. So I've got good at saying, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. And I don't need to offer an excuse. I don't need to offer an explanation. I don't need to do any sort of thing other than just say, hey, I appreciate the opportunity, or I appreciate the offer. Seems like you're doing great things, but that's not for me. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. Whatever you need to say. Sometimes the best thing you can do is say, hey, when do you need an answer by? Well, I need it by Sunday. Well, okay, that gives you 2 days, right? And you can withdraw yourself from the environment, not escapism, just withdraw for a minute and really begin to look at the thing, the opportunity, the ask, the request, the phone call, the appointment from an objective space when you're not so pressed for time and that person actually has you on the phone or in person. So give yourself some margin, give yourself some space, and then you can say no to the things that don't excite you, the things that aren't going to move the needle. This goes back to point number one. You actually have to know what it is you want too. I want to grow a business, but not at the expense of my family. So I want to be there for my daughter's swim lessons. I want to be there for my son's powerlifting competitions. I want to be there in the evenings and available for my wife and have dinner together as a family. And so if I'm saying yes to everything else, where's that time going to come from? Well, it's going to come from my other priorities. And that's what gets frustrating. Now, Kip mentioned on Wednesday, he would really like me to talk about this concept of FOMO, which is an acronym for fear of missing out. Fear of missing out. I get it. Just this last weekend, there was a total archery challenge in Utah. I'm pretty tied into the community. I know a lot of people that go to Total Archery Challenge, from Bert Soren and with Sornex and Josh Smith with Montana Knife and Dudley, and a bunch of other people as well. And I would like to hang out with those guys, Black Rifle Coffee guys. So many of my friends are there doing their thing, and I'm on social media and I'm seeing all these guys at Total Archery Challenge. I'm like, man, I wish I could be there, but I chose not to because my family and I were camping this last weekend. So how do you overcome the fear of missing out? It's point number one, sitting down and getting crystal clear about what you want. Because if I'm clear about, hey, I want to spend more time with my family than I do traveling and going to Total Archery Challenge, not that my friends aren't important, they are. Not that those networking and business opportunities aren't crucial, they are. But again, I already made my decision. And because I already made my decision, I can close that chapter of the book and feel completely confident with it. I did reach out to a couple of guys and like, hey, man, looks like Total Archery Challenge was a blast. I wish I could have been there. I was thinking about you. Hope all's going well, brother. And that allows me to participate to some degree and let people know I'm thinking about them, but not actually having to be there and be present. The reason that most people, I believe, have fear of missing out is because they don't even know what they want. They have no idea about what their goals and objectives and outcomes and desires are. And so they're just kind of tossed to and fro with the winds and the culture and the current wherever it's taking them. Oh, this is cool. Oh, that guy's cool. Oh, there's an event. Oh, there's this. And they never really measure it against what they want. Does Total Archery Challenge last weekend move me towards my objectives? In some instances and in some ways, yes. But because I know what the objectives are, I can look at it and say, okay, well, that's a decision that I've had to make this year because other things are more important to me right now. Same thing with our book launch coming out the end of September. A lot of opportunities. I could run other events. There's a lot of other things I could be doing and going places. And I've just told people no, because I know what the season requires. And it's going to require me being present, being available for the launch of the book, because that's something that's important to me. That's the season I'm in. And that's what I want to do. So when I look and I'm like, oh man, these people are doing this thing and I didn't get invited, or maybe I did get invited, but I couldn't go for whatever reason. When I'm feeling bad, all I have to do is say, oh, well, I did that because I have the book tour coming up. Or I did that because my son's powerlifting meet is happening. And I made a conscious decision to not go to that thing and instead choose my priority. All right, number 3, guys. This goes along the lines of saying no, but number 3 is protecting your time and your schedule. So I want you to start getting crystal clear, as I have tried to do over the past several months, about how I'm going to spend my time. I noticed that when I'm not clear and deliberate and intentional about how I want to spend my time, activities, interests, phone calls, meetings, tasks, they tend to bleed into other areas. And that's where a lot of my source of frustration comes from, because I'm not being as efficient as I could in one area. And therefore it sinks over into another area. Think about it this way. Imagine you come home from work and you've got a task list stacked up to your eyeballs at work, and you really didn't accomplish as much as you would have liked. And you get home. Are you going to be present at home? No. No, I mean, you're going to be physically there, but mentally and emotionally, we as men know what that's like to be physically somewhere, but not actually be mentally and emotionally present and available. So what if instead we started scheduling our time a little bit more effectively and efficiently, and then we became not a slave necessarily, but subject to our calendar. Subject to our calendar. Meaning that you schedule out your day. I'm going to do emails here. I'm going to get to the office here. I'm going to take a break at lunch for this long. I'm going to write for this long. I'm going to make these phone calls here. When I go home, I'm going to spend my time this way. I'm not going to get on the phone. I'm not going to look at emails. And we become subject to our calendars. And how much more beautiful is that? Hey, I said I was going to be done at 4. I'm done at 4. I'm done at 5. I'm done at whatever time it is for you. And now you're done and you can wash your hands of it because you know you've maximized that time. Another thing you need to be aware of is that you can lose your calendar by 1,000 little cuts. Every time you check your phone, every time you get up to go to the bathroom, every time you get a drink, every time somebody's like, hey man, can I jump on a call with you for 5 minutes? There is no such thing as a 5-minute phone call. If somebody's like, hey, can I get 5 minutes of your time? That's at least 20 minutes, at least, if not more. And even if it is 5 minutes, why should I do that? I have a calendar. I'm subject to my calendar. So if somebody does want to meet with me and that's something that I actually also want to do, then it goes into my calendar and I schedule it. I had somebody reach out the other day. They're like, hey, I'd like to talk to you. And this is an individual I need to talk with about some things. And they said, I'll call you whenever. Nope. Wrong answer. That's not how I operate. Well, I just don't know my schedule. Okay, that's your problem. It's not my problem. And I'm not going to make your problem my problem. So you figure out your schedule. I can meet you at 3 or I can meet you at 4, but not just whenever. This is the importance of scheduling and protecting your time. It isn't just whenever. My wife she always gets after me a little because sometimes I'll be here and my wife and kids are gone right now. That I think they're at the lake, and so somebody might ring the doorbell, and I won't answer it, and she'll come back. Well, who's at the door? I don't know. You didn't get it? No. Why not? You were home. Because I'm doing something else, and whatever that person needed, I'm not going to make that my priority if I already have something set up. Now, if it's crucial and they need to get a hold of me and it's scheduled, they can set that up with me. But I'm not going to let people pop into my calendar just whenever, because what I've noticed is that I start to lose control of my calendar, of my efficiency, of my effectiveness, which stresses me out, which makes me irritable, which makes me impatient. And then I lash out at the people that I love. Now, you might think that's quite the stretch. It really isn't. Can you imagine? And you guys have all been here where you have a day and there's no distractions. You're cranking it out. You're busy. You're effective. You're productive. Nobody's distracting you. And you get done with the day and you're like, man, that felt amazing. And then you go home and home life is good. Right? You're excited to see the kids. You go for a walk. Maybe you go swimming. Maybe you help them with their homework. Maybe there's a baseball game for one of the kids that you go watch, or you have dinner together as a family and you're engaged and asking them questions and actually listening to the stories about their day. And when the kids are in bed, you and your wife are talking and communicating and being present with each other, and you're intimate, later that evening, all because your day was effective and productive. So guys, be ruthless and be relentless on protecting that time and that schedule. Don't let other people's baggage and priorities slip into yours. Now, if it's a priority of yours too, okay, that's a different conversation. But if they have a priority and it's not matched or synced with yours, that's their problem, not yours. The next thing is that you have to have systems in place for being effective. I'm working with Evernote right now. I've really dived into Evernote and making sure that all my notes are compiled in one place, and I'm organizing those and making sure that the people who need access to certain information have access to those folders and those files. So now all of a sudden they're not having to reach out to me every time, or I'm not having to get on a text and say, hey, where's X, Y, and Z? Nope, it's all right there in that system. There's no guesswork. There's no concern. There's no question. Another thing it helps me do is just get the stuff, the ideas that are on my brain, out of my brain and onto paper or onto the computer screen, so I can actually organize it, prioritize it, and then execute on it in some proficient way. So you've got to have a system in place. And the other thing, in addition to having systems in place, excuse me for my coughing and my hacking in your earbuds here. Sorry about that. The other thing is that you need to work on getting better at delegation. Delegation is huge, guys. You can't do it all, and you shouldn't do it all. Not only can you not, but you actually are a leader, or at least you should be acting like one. And that means giving other people opportunities to thrive, giving them opportunities to excel, giving them opportunities to do things on their own and figure out some things. And who knows, maybe they surprise you. Maybe they come up with a new solution you hadn't considered before. But if you're hanging on to everything because you're so arrogant or you're so ego driven that you have to do it all, or maybe even distrusting that you have to do it all, you're going to burn out. And that's a bit where I was getting, where I felt like I had to do everything. If I wanted it done right, I had to do it. Nobody was there to help. Nobody could do it as good as I did. And some of that may be true in some instances, but I've been pleasantly surprised over the past several months as I begin to delegate more of this stuff out, and then I hold people to getting it done. I'm very clear about what I want. I expect them to be very clear and forthright with me, and then I hold them to that standard. And if they can't meet that standard, I find somebody else, because I don't have time or the desire to try to babysit somebody who isn't interested in taking initiative, somebody who is not a self-starter, somebody who's not creative, somebody who can't come up with some solutions on their own. Now, I'm not going to feed people to the wolves. I give them all the information, tools, and resources they need to thrive and win, but I can't spoon feed it to them. If it's all there and I've done a good job explaining it and articulating it and teaching them how to use the tools at their disposal, and they're not using those tools, I'm out. I'm done. I'm going to find somebody else. And there are plenty of other people who would love these opportunities. So as you're delegating, give people some responsibility and expect that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. Give them everything they can to do it, and then let them do it. If they do it, good. You can give them a little bit more. If they don't, there's some correction necessary. If it's a habit, you need to let that person go and you need to find somebody else who can do it better. Guys, the last thing that I want to share with you today is more physiological in nature as opposed to some of this 30,000 foot view stuff. But I don't want you to underestimate the importance of sleep, nutrition, and exercise. For me, that's the first thing to go when I'm busy. I believe that's probably true of most men. We're busy with work, we're busy with tasks and assignments and hobbies and this and that. And so the first thing to go is the exercise. The next thing to go is the nutrition, because you got to just grab a burger at the convenience store because you don't have time for anything else. Next thing to go is your sleep. Hey, I gotta stay awake till midnight tonight, and I gotta wake up at 4 a.m. because I have this deadline I have to hit. We have to do a better job protecting our sleep, our diet, and our exercise regimen. And as I've gotten off track, I put on a few little extra pounds around the midsection that I'm working off now. But I'm telling you, over the past couple of months, I've started to lock it in, and I immediately feel better. Almost instantaneously, my energy has gone up, my sex drive has gone up, my efficacy at work and other venues has gone up, and I just feel better. I don't feel as stressed and overwhelmed. I feel better about the way that I look. I'm not carrying around as much weight. It's a better thing. Okay. So I know you're busy. I know you have priorities and tasks and all this stuff, and you got people crawling all over you trying to get things done and whatever. Follow those steps so that you can always protect your sleep, the things that you eat, and your exercise time for yourself. Huge. Cannot be overstated, guys. So that's where it is. I know my energy is a little low today. That's not because of any of this. It's because I don't feel all that great. But we're going to drive through. We're going to drive on. I've been very, very effective today to the point that I'm sharing with you. It's 2:30. I'm going to do a few more things, send a few emails, and do a little bit of admin stuff. And then I'm going to sign out for the rest of the afternoon. The beautiful thing is I can do that because I'm following these steps, and I can do that without feeling guilty. I used to feel guilty. I don't have to feel guilty. I got all my work done. I exercised the system. I got all my work done. Everything's on track. I got out ahead of some things. So now, if I slip for a day or two, it's okay. I'm still on pace. This is the power of getting back on the path, staying on the path, but having the systems and processes and delegation and nutrition and sleep and exercise and all these things to keep you on the path. All right, you guys, I hope that helps. Don't beat yourself up when you get off the path, because we all do. And it's okay to feel bad about it, actually. Much of society will tell you, oh, you don't have to feel bad about it. You should just be okay with it. You're one man and you can't do it all. I don't agree with that. I think it's okay to feel bad about it. I think that experience, that emotional experience of guilt or sorrow or remorse or frustration, if used correctly and harnessed properly, can actually be the fuel that you need to get your life back on track. So don't go wallow in your own self-pity, but don't be numb to it either. Experience it. Yeah, I feel bad. Good, you should. And now what are you going to do about it? Get yourself back on the path. All right, guys, we'll be back next week. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.